This is Rodrigo Ramirez, coming at you live, although I'm not really live. That's just one of those things we say. Antiquated things that we still say from the radio days. And this is, in fact, Roddy Radio, a subsidiary of Roddy TV. We are a podcast stemming from the need, from the want, from the bare necessity of listening to me, Roddy Ramirez, speak in English. Speak with guests usually. This is episode number 5, and so far I've had a handful of guests. All of them have been very great. We have some guests coming up in future episodes, but today, motherfuckers, you just get me. This is Roddy Radio, and there's a reason I call it that. It's because it is about Roddy himself. So you will get occasionally these episodes where it's a solo episode, mind you. We'll see how it goes, honestly. I don't really like doing solo episodes on Alta Red, which is my Spanish language podcast. Season 1, I had a couple solo episodes that I hope everyone has forgotten because I did not think they were that great. But this, I have been encouraged by a couple of friends. Shout out to them, of course. Gritty knows best. Thomas Gritty out there in New York. He encouraged me to do, he has encouraged me in the past to do solo episodes. And of course, Sam Diane from Figuring Out Epilepsy, she also said, go for shit. Well, she didn't say it like that. She's not quite as vulgar as I am, but she also encouraged me. So shout out to you two who have that enough faith in me to say, yeah, go, try it. Try a solo episode. So today, there's actually something I've been wanting to talk about on some episodes here and on Alta Red, but this topic hasn't really come up, so I figure I'd just do a whole episode about it. Now, to start it off, I just gotta let you guys know that I'm not really a superstitious person. I'm not a religious person. I don't believe in destiny. There's a lot of stuff that people believe that I just straight up do not. Like I said, I don't believe in destiny. That being said, I also don't believe in any type of curse, any witchcraft, any of that stuff. But let me tell you, sometimes you don't believe in stuff, but sometimes you just get to thinking. You know what I mean? And what I want to talk to you today, this episode is going to be releasing November 16th, 2023, one day before November 17th. Now, November 17th seems to be a cursed day for my family and for me. Not every single year, or at least I haven't noticed every single year there being an occurrence. Although I'm going to be on the lookout this year. The first occurrence I'm aware of happened when I was only a year old, almost 2 years old. November 17th, 1988. My dad's brother, my uncle, had been living with us at our home in Montana. He took a trip down to Mexico. He got in a car accident where he died. His sister died, so an aunt of mine also, and a few others survived. He never came back. Now, I've told the story often when people ask me when or why I started playing guitar. There was a guitar at the house that I would bring up off the wall and start fiddling around with before I learned anything about guitar. That guitar belonged to him, to my Uncle Chewy. He died, he left it behind. He was a very close friend of my mother. My mother says that after he died, he used to play with me. Before he died, he used to play with me, chase me around the house and whatnot. And shortly after he died, I was running around the house in the same manner that in which I used to play with my uncle. I don't know if any of that's true or if there's anything to that, but it is what it is. He passed away November 17th, 1988. Now we're going to take a huge, huge leap. Now let me tell you about my father. He's someone that I did not ever see eye to eye with. And he and my mom split up. It's been over a decade now, maybe 12 years. It was when I was 25, actually, so that makes it 11 years. They finalized their divorce when I turned 25, on my birthday, actually. But he stopped talking to us, to me and all three of my brothers. That night, he decided to tell us one by one why we disappointed him, why he didn't love us. It was a really rough night, but we got over it. I can't say I did not cry. I cried plenty. I felt like I mourned him, despite not really feeling any love for him. I always felt like I lost him, or at least what little I had of him. And it wasn't all that bad. It was kind of a burden lifted off of me. No longer felt like I had to prove myself to him or anybody else. Never had to try hard to impress him, only to be met by a really grim stare. Never had to wish him a happy birthday or a Merry Christmas, only to be received by cold arms. I won't even mention Father's Day because it had been years and years since I had wished him a happy Father's Day. Ever since one particular one where his response was extremely cold towards my happy Father's Day. But despite all of that, I mourned him. We cried it out. The question was asked why he didn't love us, why he didn't care for any of us. Maybe I would have been jealous if he loved at least one of my brothers, but it would have been a feeling instead of no feeling, instead of the void of not feeling anything for your father. So, in the month of October of 2021, my ex-wife was planning a party for her parents, a birthday party for both of them, and it was going to be a big occasion. She was planning to decorate the tables with a whole lot of hoopla, and we actually went to the dollar store. Now, at this time, my ex-wife was pregnant with our second daughter, and we're at the checkout at the dollar store, and who should come up in line behind us but my father and his new wife. New wife to me. They'd been married for a couple of years by then. He sees me, he sees my firstborn daughter, he sees my wife at the time, and he has to notice that she's pregnant. She is very pregnant at this point. He doesn't speak to any of us. We walk out. I'm a little frustrated because I always hated running into him, but that's the way it is when you're in a small city, as we are now. And we walk out, and my wife at the time asked me, what's wrong? Something's up with you. And I said, did you not see who was behind you? She said, yeah, he looked familiar. I wasn't sure if that was him. Of course, she'd never actually met him, but she knew what he looked like. So she says, yeah, can't believe he didn't say hi to you despite even seeing that I'm pregnant, that you're about to be a dad again. But, again, it is what it is. We moved on. We continued with our lives. That was October of 2021. November 17th, 2021. A few days before that, actually, I got the news that my dad had some sort of a heart attack, and he was in very, very bad condition in the hospital. My cousin was telling me about this and really did not feel anything, but since I was the person they contacted as far as me and my brothers, I just said, I'm going to let my brothers know. I texted all three of my brothers, and just as expected, there was no big response. Didn't really seem to affect any of us. Now November 17th comes around. He goes under for a surgery. It doesn't come out. Same thing. They let me know. Your father is gone. No longer exists. I let my brothers know. Same cold response. As I said, we had mourned him 10 years earlier. The fact that he was gone from this plane of existence no longer affected us in the minimum. Did not change our lives. Did not affect them for good, but it not affected. We were unaffected. Not good, not bad, just no effect at all. That was November 17th, 2021. 2 days later, my daughter was born on November 19th, 2021. She was born in a different hospital, but due to complications, we ended up at the same hospital that my father died a few days later. I was wondering about that, and I out of sheer curiosity, I asked my cousin, and she told me what floor he passed away in, and it was a couple floors up from where we were in the maternity ward. Now, didn't know how to feel about it, and I didn't feel anything about it. I could not wonder if the feeling I had, because I've heard of people say that, when they're feeling, maybe they feel happy and they think they should feel sad or vice versa. The thing was, I did not feel anything. I did not feel like my feelings were wrong. I just did not feel anything about that. I had bigger fish to fry. Now, again, my ex-wife, she got ill. I was only going to take 1 week off of work when my daughter was born. That got extended to 2 because of her complications and us going back to the hospital. Unfortunately, word got around that my father had died. And when I got back to work, a lot of my coworkers assumed that I had missed all that time off work because my father had died. Now, I'm a very private person at work, which might surprise you because I have these podcasts. But they don't know much about me at work. My coworkers don't know a whole hell of a lot about me. They all felt sorry for me. They thought I was gone because my father had died. They had no idea that I was having another kid. So it was, in fact, a leave of absence, not for something sad, but actually for something joyous. That was November 17th, 2021. A year later, during the late part of October of 2022 and into November of 2022, my oldest daughter kept getting sick. There was some days that she was fine. One day she even had to come home from school. They called us up and we picked her up. She was not well. A lot of those nights she had very high fevers. She is a child who tends to hallucinate when she has these fevers. Now, my ex-wife's mother, she to this day watches our kids at their house. And we would drop them off very early in the morning before we headed to work. Now, my wife's bright idea was to leave our oldest daughter there so that we wouldn't have to take her out into the cold air of the morning because she was ill. It broke my heart. I did not like being without her. But I also didn't want to be far away from our almost 1-year-old. It was a really tough decision, but when your child's sick, you got to stand by that kid. And I was staying the night with her in the living room of her grandparents' home. A cold, old trailer home. But I would cuddle up with her and be with her late into the night when she was hallucinating with her fever. When she couldn't sleep, we would turn on the TV and we would watch SpongeBob and laugh until we finally passed out. Just sleep would finally take over. I can't speak for my daughter, but I could feel something in her was very sad. And I think it was the fact that she felt lonely. Despite me being there, she needed more than that in those hours of her being ill. I did what I could and I was with her all those nights. November 17th. That evening, she's still feeling sick again. She had been kind of peaking to feeling a little bit better. She started feeling really ill again. We go to the pediatrician. The main pediatrician at the office finally takes a look at her and says, well, let's go ahead and get an x-ray. It's really late right now. Go ahead and get it tomorrow. But, we'll see what it is and we'll go from there. Now, as you may or may not know, I have a lot of disdain for my ex-wife, but this is something that she did right and maybe the only thing I will ever say I admire about her. She did not wait for the next day. She had the idea to go to the emergency room, and we got our daughter's x-ray that very night. They sent that x-ray to the pediatrician that very night. What he saw, he did not like. He started freaking out, calling, trying to contact us. I missed the call. I couldn't call him back because it wasn't his direct line. It was to the clinic, so it was closed at that time, so I was just getting a voicemail. So he finally left me a voicemail saying that we needed to go to the hospital. Eileen was not well at all, and we needed to go to the hospital ASAP. Not knowing if I received that voicemail, he showed up at that old trailer home. He made a trip at about 10 at night to let us know that we needed to take our daughter to the hospital now. So we pack up in the car, bundle up my daughter, and we head in. He explained to us that in the x-ray he saw her lungs were very much full of fluid. Pneumonia caused by the RSV. She had RSV, but what was really starting to kick her butt was the pneumonia. So we go in and they decide to analyze her. They start wondering what to do, and they let us know what they think is the best option is to drain her lung. They stick this big needle in her back, right into her lung, as her mother and I held her hands. All three of us cried. And they drained a big container of fluid from her lungs. One of the scariest things I've ever been through, if not the scariest. And any of you who are parents, and if you're parents and your child has ever been ill or hospitalized, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, the whole time I'm very well aware of the date. It's November 17th. And despite saying all that stuff about how I don't care that my dad died, how it did not affect me, it came back and haunted me. Despite the fact that I don't say I believe in anything. The fact that I in fact say I don't believe in any afterlife, good or bad. There's no such thing as ghosts. There's no such thing as spirits. But in that moment, I couldn't help but think of him. And I thought to myself, look, you motherfucker. You already screwed me over in life all these times. Don't do this to me. Do not take my daughter. You never once said hello to her the many times that you ran into us in town. You never once expressed any notion that you wanted to meet her. Do not take her from me now, you son of a bitch. Now, I don't know if that counts as a prayer, but that's what I kept saying. That's what I kept thinking. Because it was true. He never once talked to either of my daughters. He knew my nieces, my brother's daughters, from a long time before he died, but when he was still with my mother. After they separated, he never reached out to them. As far as I know, he never reached out to my other older brother. And with my younger brother, he would still have some contact with him in the very beginning after the divorce. He would give him some potato chips from the place where he worked, where they manufactured these chips. On one occasion, he gave him a couple cases. And then that same day, we realized that he had pulled my brother's health insurance. My brother was still in college. So by doing that, now he had to pay his own health insurance through the college, which just added a ton of money more that he owed the college. I grabbed those boxes of potato chips and I took them to his house. Walked into the enclosed porch. I left him there. I banged on the door. I could tell his wife was there. She was hiding. The TV was on. I started yelling. Saying, take your fucking potato chips. My brother doesn't need any chips. What he needs is health insurance. What he needs is a father. You aren't giving him that, so don't give him anything else. Fuck you. Now he saw us in that dollar store, and he did not say hello. He did not acknowledge that my ex-wife was pregnant. And of course, a few weeks later, he was gone. He was dead. I don't believe in destiny. My ex-wife said destiny gave him one last opportunity to reach out before he died. He did not take it. And now I felt like he was trying to take my daughter on November 17th, 2022, 1 year later. We stayed at the hospital with my daughter. She was slowly recovering. And it was a very scary, slow process of recovering. Now on November 19th, my youngest daughter's first birthday, my ex-wife shows up to the hospital, gives us a piece of cake that she had bought for my youngest daughter. She had not been staying with us at the hospital. And that was the night that she got violent with me at the hospital. That was the night I decided to divorce her. After my oldest daughter, hospitalized, saw the violence and pleaded to me that I get divorced finally, after many times of her asking us not to. And you know, it's funny, November 19th, 2022, that was my daughter's first birthday, my second daughter's first birthday, and I did not get to spend it with her. My oldest daughter, I did not get to spend her first birthday with her either, because her mother decided it was more important to visit Mexico during a time that I could not leave the country. So I don't know. Again, I'm supposed to say destiny does not exist. But am I destined to not spend the first birthday of any children of mine, with them next to me, able to tell them happy birthday and hold them? Fuck. I don't know. So it was a bad, bad time, but some of the good has come out of it. I'm finally out of that relationship that was terrible for many years. I wish I had my daughters a lot more than what I do. But, like they said, Idaho is a woman's state. Which I guess means they're not a justice state. They're not a liberty and justice state. They're a women's state. So fuck the state of Idaho too. Now, something else that happened on November 17th, 2022 that I was not aware of until a few days later while I'm sitting at the hospital. My daughter's asleep. I'm sitting on the couch next to her, looking at my phone, looking at social media. My friend Isaac posted that he was very sad that Dylan had left. I was confused. Sent Isaac a message and asked him what the hell was going on. And he explained it to me. Before I tell you what he told me, let me tell you who Dylan was. Dylan Harmon was a kid who I met working at a spud warehouse. For a while there, when right before my first daughter was born and a couple years into her second year, I was still working 2 jobs because that was the only way I was able to make ends meet at the time. I was working at a meat packing plant in the evenings, but in the mornings I was working at a spud house, same spud house that my mother was working at the time, Webster's Potato in Idaho, in Rigby, Idaho. Actually, he's not there anymore. They've shut down since then. Dylan, man, he was young. He was 15. He started working there. Tiny, scrawny kid. But he wanted to work. He was a hard worker. And I showed him how to stack. We had some free weights for some reason there at the job, and I made him start lifting weights in between boxes so that he could get built. And he could keep up with the best of us, man. He was this scrawny little white kid just having so much fun. I got to know him really well and really loved that kid, man. His dad didn't give a shit about him. He lived with his mother. His mother had her issues as well, but she loved Dylan. Despite maybe not being able to, or choosing other things before him, maybe not being able to care for him the way she should have, and choosing other things before him. But she loved him. They loved each other. They were there for each other. Then she went and died. And I can't tell you exactly how long Dylan was alone. I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 years. But he was alone for a couple of years. He would often hit me up in the beginning, ask me what I was doing on a Friday night, sometimes during the week. Young kids like to go out and party any day of the week. I was always busy. I'm a family man. I can't go with this little kid, you know. You guys have fun. But at work, I mean, we'd always try to work together. I liked how he worked. He liked how I work. I remember it was probably about September, like once right after school had started, and it was his senior year in high school. My drunk ass wanted to sneak some beers into my meat packing job. I bought some beers, maybe some wine. I might have bought some wine. And I wanted to sneak it into my office, but I didn't know how. Well, alas, there's some $5 clearance backpacks because back to school season was over. I bought a $5 backpack to sneak booze into my job, into my office. Now the next day that backpack was still on me, and I was telling this story to Dylan, and he said he needed a backpack for high school for his senior year. I gave it to him, and he was very, very grateful. I said, don't mention it, man. He tried hard, but he just wanted to finish high school and work full time at the Spud House. Him and Isaac's brother ended up working at Maverick for a while, and not really sure what he was doing after that, but they got out of the Spud House. November 17th, 2022. According to what Isaac tells me, on November 17th, 2022, Dylan decided to do a hard drug. I've not been confirmed what it was that he did, that he took. He always liked marijuana. I knew that he did some acid. But hard drugs I did not know, and I honestly don't think he was on to any of that. But this night he decided to take some. Isaac tells me he went outside, passed out. They found him frozen the next morning. The same night, and I can't help but wonder, was it at the same time that they were draining fluids from my daughter's lungs? Was that exact time the time he was freezing to death? I don't know if it was the exact time, but I knew it was that same night. Though I didn't find out about it till a day or two later. I couldn't believe what Isaac was telling me, and I'm sitting in the hospital next to my very ill daughter. I lost a little brother that day, man. On November 17th. Now, I read Dylan Harmon's obituary, and it was a very cold, sorry excuse for a piece of literature. For a piece of journalism, it was nothing. All it gave me was his date of birth, which I already knew. So I took to social media and wrote something myself, and I want to read that to you guys now. I've never actually read it out loud. I wrote it after I read his cold-hearted obituary. Dylan Harmon was born on April 24th of the year 2000. Now, I started this with a short criticism of the obituary. And I wrote, "This is a kind obituary. A tad generic, though. They forgot to mention that to most people, Dylan was just some little stoner. They forgot to mention what a hard worker he was. How at 15 years old, he learned everything I had to teach him about stacking spuds. And by the end of that summer, not only could he keep up, but he could actually outstack a lot of grown-ass motherfuckers. We had so much fun. They forgot to mention that he loved to sing the song that never ends at the top of his lungs. They forgot to mention how he had an incredibly childish and contagious laugh. They never once mentioned that he completely lost it when his mother died, when he was left alone. They forgot to mention how bright he was, and how the neglect of society slowly dimmed him out. Society's neglect, my neglect. I feel partly responsible. I could have been there a lot more. I tried. Not enough. His senior year, he was excited to finish school. He wasn't stupid, but nobody challenged him. Nobody rewarded him. It's just a fucking stoner, right? Wrong. He was my friend. They forgot to mention what an incredibly kind, loyal, sweet person he could be. He was a lost child. We all fucked up. And now, we all will miss him. Dylan, I don't believe in any afterlife. But you do live in my heart, and I can still hear you singing, "This is the song that never ends. And it goes on, my friend." Our song will never end, man. Rest in peace. Is November 17th cursed? I don't think so. It's just a lot of coincidences. A lot of fucked up shit on November 17th.